Mr. President, thank you very much for talking with us today. So I have a couple of questions for you, and then I've brought some help to ask you some other questions. First, I want to ask you about the most recent border controversy. We know about the outcome, but I wanted to ask you what it was like facing someone who's trying to take 2/3 of your country.
Well, first of all, I think for us to speak about the border necessitates us understanding that peace, whether there's an actual value on peace and there's a price tag on peace, if you attribute a price and value on peace, then you're saying that there is a cost that you're willing to pay in order to get to peace. I believe that peace is not a price tag. Peace must be something that we continuously work towards. It must be one of those stable parts of the world, of the society in which we live in. And I approach that meeting with the clear understanding that Guyana want, first of all, peace and stability within this region. We will do everything to ensure that we enjoy peace and stability and the region enjoys peace and stability, because any destabilization of the peace and stability within the region does not only affect Guyana. It affects a region that is heavily dependent on tourism. It affects the transport and logistics. And Brazil, for example, depends heavily on transportation and logistics. They're one of the major exporter of food and other raw material. They're a major importer of fertilizer and other chemicals. So in the interest of the region and in keeping with our own thinking, our own moral compass, if I might put it that way, peace and stability is our primary concern. And also the fact that we were approaching these talks from a position of being part of an international system. That is, being in the ICJ, making it very clear that we will respect the outcome of the ICJ, and urging Venezuela to participate in the ICJ, knowing fully well that international law, as an important part of multilateralism, international law is an important part of what makes us the family of United Nations and part of the UN Charter. So we also are acutely aware that the region and most, if not all, of the international players are supporting the ICJ process, but notwithstanding this, that there are consequential issues, as described, that we will still have to address. At the end of the day, Guyana and Venezuela will remain neighbors. We have to work in a collaborative way for the betterment of the region. We have resources that are similar, resources that can be deployed effectively to the energy security of the region, leading to the food security of the region, and of course, addressing issues of climate change and these things are all important issues that we have to collaborate on. So I did not go into the meeting looking at Maduro as someone who is trying to take away 2/3 of Guyana. I went into the meeting knowing that I'm representing the people of our country, knowing exactly where our position is, and knowing that we wanted peace and stability, and presenting the case that Guyana is going to continue along the path of the ICJ, but at the same time, we are open to dialogue on all consequential matters, and also in the pursuit of peace and stability.
As we're talking, Venezuela did agitate about the movement of a British ship in Guyana's cooperation with them, and we had cooperation with the U.S. only recently as well. Are we going to see more of that?
Well, as you know, we have been working aggressively with our international partners. I've said this openly, and we cannot close the door on our international partners. We want our international partners to be actively involved with us in building our capacity, strengthening our institutional system, sharing knowledge, sharing expertise, doing joint exercises, and not only aimed at securing our borders, but aimed at regional security. For example, the British ship did not only come to Guyana, the British ship spent time in Barbados. It was part of a regional security apparatus. And a lot of what we are doing jointly with the US, with the UK, with France, is integrated into the regional security architecture. And I think that that is skillfully maneuvered in the statements as non-events, and trying to use this as an opportunity to put Guyana in a specific light within Latin America and the Caribbean. But that won't happen, because we have made it very clear that there are a number of joint initiatives that we're working on, and we will do nothing. We are not covetous. We don't seek after anybody's land. We're not the ones who want 2/3 of any land. We are going to do everything to defend what is ours, not to attack anyone for anything. So the region can rest assured. Venezuela can rest assured that none of our activities, none of our programs are aimed at Venezuela. That's totally not part of our radar. It is aimed at building our capacity to defend Guyana and defend what is ours.
After your meeting in St. Vincent, there was a declaration that was issued talking about a meeting in 3 months in Brazil. Is that going to be with you and Maduro again, or? So
that's the meeting with the leaders. So it will be Maduro and I. But before that, there will be other meetings that will take place at a technical level. We still have to iron out the modalities and so on. So I foresee a number of meetings maybe before that 3-month meeting in Brazil, where President Maduro and I will meet.
And finally, on this issue, your budget is coming up. I wanted to know if there will be an increase in budgetary funding for the defense sector.
Well, there's been active plans to step up our spending in our security sector, especially the Guyana Defense Force, not only from a hardware perspective, but also from a human resource perspective. Building technical capacity and capability, building our air wing, building our sea assets, our the maritime asset, Coast Guard assets. Those are important investments that we are making, but also critical training and other hardware equipment, cybersecurity. All of this would see, I would say, extended expenditure in security, and this is a consequence of development. I mean, I said before that as we grow, the threats are going to become more sophisticated, and the criminals are going to become more sophisticated. Not only the economy will become more sophisticated, but the type of criminals we'll have operating in the economic space of Guyana will be far more sophisticated. So we have to build the capacity. We have to invest in the technology, and definitely the budget will focus on security and the Guyana Defense Force, and also on strengthening internal systems, but importantly on building our institutional capacity, training our human resources, and advancing a holistic security architecture that is fit for purpose.
Thank you. So, Mr. President, I started out by saying that I brought help. So I have a group of women who had some questions to ask. So we could start off first with Padma De Lima. She is a senior executive with ANSA McAL. So Padma, your question.
Thanks, Mark. Good afternoon, Mr. President. And thank you for taking the time out to chat with us. And more so, as an ESSEC Caribbean, I'd like to say thank you for the peaceful resolution. We very much appreciate that with Venezuela. So leading off from with Neil's question in terms of budget, over 2023, we have seen significant increase in cost of living in Guyana. Even fresh produce, you can noticeably high increase. You've made mention and you've spoken at, I think, PSC on the plans to increase disposable income. Do you care to share with us the plans that are in place to reduce the cost of living in the upcoming year?
Well, first of all, I agree with you globally, and you know this. We had serious impact on cost of living, especially the price for food. But we must examine what are some of the enabling conditions that the world faces, and Guyana is part of a global system, and then also understand the actions that we took as a government to, and you being in the business sector, know that some of these actions directly benefited the consumer because there was no direct pass on of some of the increases. So let's look at what over the last 3 years. First of all, you had COVID. The cost for transportation and logistics went up by 1,000%. You had the highest increases in the price of fuel. You had the worst climatic conditions, a short supply of food. You had a war in Ukraine, which took up grains price and took the basis point up by about 30% in most countries. Grains is the primary product for many other food value added. So we had all of these to face. And what did we do coming into a government? The first thing we were faced with is COVID. We did not even have a COVID hospital. We had to invest in that COVID hospital. We had to get resources there to keep the economy going whilst we fought COVID. And what did we do? We gave a cash grant across the board to every family to help because we know about the impact. We immediately made some adjustments on the calculation of the taxes for imports coming in the country. That saved consumers billions of dollars. We have not adjusted back that up to now. We removed the taxes from fuel prices, took it to zero. $17 billion of added expenditure removed from consumer. We removed the VAT on electricity and water. We removed 200 plus taxes on all food items and other consumables for the family. We increased wages by almost 23%. We increased the old age pension by almost 60%. We increased the public assistance by about 70%. We transferred billions of dollars directly into the pockets of households. What we did also is that, and I'm happy that we have so many women here, all women panel, and this is a good example of where the country is going. Over the last 3 years, I've seen women in different executive positions doing an extremely good job at not only in the private sector, but also in our society. And I believe that that women has the ability to drive and help us to drive change even at a faster pace. So those are some of the things that we did. But look at what we did also to encourage more disposable income to the family. When we launched the part-time job program, it was to bring mostly single women who never were in the workforce into the workforce, and that transferred $10 billion directly to the most vulnerable in our society. So just imagine if we did not do these things, what would have been the impact? Supporting the farmers with fertilizer, bringing back 5,000 workers back in sugar, paying the severance for 5,000 workers who were severed and never got anything. Then also supporting single parents, the $600,000 dialysis program for persons who removing the 25% corporate tax on private education and also on health care. More than 9,000 persons in the discipline services had their salaries adjusted, removing anomalies that existed. Thousands of teachers, transferring billions of dollars directly to these segments of our population. So all of that we did in a global environment where we had to battle against the COVID-19. We had to battle against the war in Ukraine and rising food and grain prices. We had to battle against the cost of fuel. We had to battle against increases in energy costs. At the same time, whilst we were doing all of this, we had many other difficulties internally that we had to look at. We had a flood. You know, in 3 years, I was faced with 2 floods. The government battled 2 floods in 3 years. We battled our own local political scenarios that has consequences. We battled long dry season. The amount of resources we had to put in pumping water into the rice fields and into for the farmers during the last couple of months. I mean, all of this and these investments has a direct impact on the cost of a final product that goes to the consumer. The subsidies in the housing sector that is enabling people. Now everybody wants the low-income homes. They don't want the land anymore because of the cross-subsidization that we have been able to give. Now, moving forward. So where do we see things heading now globally? Look at what is happening now in Palestine and the issues with transportation, logistics. Now, we have had just a threat with Venezuela, and our insurance cost is going up now for shipping. So these are things that we'll have to face, notwithstanding the removal of border. What we have done in the first 3 years is that we have left very little room on adjustment for taxes because already you're zero for fuel. So the policy formulation has to be more innovative. And that is what we are focusing now. How do we ensure, one, we get more disposable income in the pockets of people, keep the type of subsidies we have already given that is costing tens of billions of dollars going, and at the same time, how do we expand the economy and open up opportunities? And that is where the conversation. Also, how do we remove some of the existing burdens on families, like the Because We Care grant, helping children? How do we help the elderly? How do we give more support in healthcare to the general population? These are the type of policies and initiatives that we are looking at. How do we build the system to ensure that more disposable income goes to you at the end of the day? Looking at the threshold issue. But you will know that one of the complaints against the government now is that because we're taking up our salaries so rapidly, at a lower level, maybe not at the higher level, but definitely at the middle and low level, the private sector can't compete. And the government cannot outcompete the private sector for financing or in salaries. And these are things that we have to be careful about. You see, also, when your recurrent expenditure gets bloated in the government, that leads to the Dutch disease. So you have to be very careful about how you allow the recurrent expenditure, because every time you give, there is giving up of something from the government. So, for example, we have said already that we have to move to free university education. We have already given more than 20,000 scholarships under the Gold program. Now, that will have a major cost. And also, that will take more people into the university system, more people coming out with degrees, so more people entering at a higher level, which requires higher salaries. And that is both a public and private sector issue that we'll have to confront. And then we also have to remember that we have the promise of bringing down the cost of energy by half. That will definitely put more disposable income in people's pocket, less energy costs, but also it helps us to build out the manufacturing and industrial sectors that will create higher value jobs, and that is what we're focusing on. In the new year, you will see a number of initiatives that will lead to the creation of higher value jobs. For example, young people like you guys, women who are professionals. You might be a chartered accountant, you might be a junior, senior executive in the company you're working with. But that does not mean you cannot participate in the push for the country to become a major food supplier. So how do we get you involved in the technologically driven food production processes and building out of consortiums? So that is where I want to put that.
You mentioned in women and empowering women and having see women. One of the questions that I have for you, and I know these are usually ticklish questions because you go on the whole sexist, feminist issue there, is the access to financing. We have a lot of female entrepreneur, young, coming up. one of the difficulty is accessing financing because of the requirement that is from the bank. You're now starting up, you don't have access to $5, $6, $10 million. So the collateral is not there. What is it that your administration have in place to help our young, developing, aspiring entrepreneur, woman entrepreneur, to be specific in accessing finance
Well,
in the
this
future?
is one of the things that we've been working on aggressively. And sometimes we have to be very clear as to what we want. I think that women and businesses in Guyana got accustomed to working solo for too long. We have to form corporations, we have to form consortiums, bring together different skills and different capital. So, for example, the Eco Lodge project is one example as to how we're bringing women together who individually could not have raised $300 million. But coming together as a collective of 50, 60 women, they can raise $300 million. They can get access to financing, but also the banking sector. The banking sector in Guyana is ultra risk averse, I'll put it that way. And we need to change that. We need to change that by the government and the private sector partnering and saying, if these are the sectors that we want investment in the future, how do we ensure that the banking sector promotes investment here and reduce the, not the oversight or regulatory requirement, but reduce that adverse risk, approach to doing business. And we have to find that right balance. Take, for example, I had offered I think you were there at the Georgetown Chambers. I had offered to match for the private sector to raise money, and the government will match it to have a small business revolving fund. And I never heard back from the private sector, unfortunately. But it requires everyone to work together, the private sector, the banking sector, and the government. We will work on creating a policy framework that will promote entrepreneurship and business development, and we've been doing it. We have some very successful stories. Take, for example, the corn and soya project. That was nowhere on the horizon. We brought together competitors, and we put them to work together in a consortium, and that is going to be a major success story. The Freedom Hoop shore-based project, the catering service for the FPSO, now owned by locals, a billion-dollar business, the Eco Lodge facility. But there's so much more that I think we will have to do. Take, for example, tourism, and that is an area that has tremendous potential. The whole issue of glamping and looking at what we offer and the type of people that will be coming into Guyana. Because we have to build a system in Guyana in which we can have at least 3 million people passing through our country to utilize the services that we're producing, because we are growing supply, and supply requires demand. So there are opportunities that will come up there, right? Requires some proactive thinking also. And I believe that I've seen the women in our country in the private sector. I've seen their approach to things, and I believe that you guys can help in leading a lot of what will take place. But definitely it is something that will be addressed more holistically, but it requires us all working together.
Thank you, sir. So we want to move to Abigail Loncke. She became very famous when she got a shout out from Obama when she took part in the Young Leaders of the Americas program. Abigail is also now a leader in SISPRO, which is a company that has won oil blocks. She's the executive director. So Abigail, you have questions similar to Padma in a way?
Similar, yes, in a way. But I wanted to start first. I heard you spoke about women being in executive roles and pushing that agenda. And I really want to know if there are policies or systems that are going to be in place to promote women moving up the ladder, whether it's in private sector, in public sector, and what does that look like for the government?
It's not only policy. I mean, the policies are there. We have one of the most, I think, advanced constitution when it deals with women participating in public life. You have a percentage that must be on the list, but this is not about a policy, and that is where we get it wrong. The issue has to be is a culture, is a shift in culture, shift in thinking, shift in mindset. That is what has to take place. Now, and that shift is already occurring. If you look at the role women are playing in our society, and not only the role they're playing now, but the areas they're diversing themselves in. For example, oil and gas, construction. You have many women-led construction companies now. You have building companies that are owned by women. You have companies in agriculture. Look at the agri-innovation project that we have at Monrepo. I would say maybe 70% women. And this cultural shift and thinking has to take place, and it has to take place not only at a policy level. It has to take place from the family, from the home, from the community, from the region, and in the country itself. The private sector, for example, the role of women in the private sector, and to see how we organize more networking, I would say. Not symposium. I think we have one too many symposium now. More networking, more active approach to how do we build out this network of women. And not only women looking at women moving up the ladder and women having a place in society, it's women being agents of change. Women must now carry the message of the, I would say, the underperformance of men in the economy. Because you have now, look at the output of the university. Men are not even entering university, and that must be a concern for all of society. So it is not, when one speaks about women empowerment, it's not to confine yourself to issues about women. It's to lead the conversation and issues about society, about the country, about the economy. And I think that is what makes a difference. That is what makes you stand out. Because, as you rightfully said, you're not looking at this from a sexist perspective. You're looking at this from a national perspective, how women can help in addressing the issues that even men are confronting now. Look at the issues with the behavioral change, I would say, in the school system. Now, women can play an important role in addressing the behavioral change of children in the school system. So the policies are there. It is how do we drive the conditions of change from a cultural, societal perspective. I think that is the important question.
Thanks. I just want to shift to Gabrielle now, but before that, just because you mentioned it twice, I think, or more than that, you said that next year you're moving towards a phased approach to free university education.
Yes.
What did you mean by that? What does that look like?
A phased approach.
What does that mean?
Well,
are you going to wipe out debt from the previous students? I'm trying to understand.
Let's get there. It's going to be an approach that commences the implementation of free education. As you know, there are persons who are already on the register who are paying loans. So I think that that segment of the student population will have to be addressed first, and then we phase ourselves in.
Very good. So I'm going to move to Gabrielle. Gabrielle is a post-colonial writer. She specializes in prose, poetry, and drama. She's a finalist on the Guyana Prize for Literature. Gabrielle, your question.
Good afternoon, Honourable President. Thank you for having me here today. I'm honoured to serve as an ambassador for the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports, and my question is as follows. Fostering a society that values art on par with STEM is crucial for a well-rounded and innovative future. How does your administration plan to promote equal value for arts and STEM, ensuring that individuals pursuing careers in both fields have access to quality education and opportunities and are compensated competitively?
Culture, sports, art, and STEM. Those 4 areas are areas of the future. Let's speak first with STEM. Now, the trajectory of the country is moving towards a very STEM-oriented economy. Let me put it that way. Because of the type of opportunities that will come as a spin-off of the cheaper energy. I don't want to say it's cheap energy, cheaper energy, manufacturing, industrialization. So how do we prepare ourselves for this? Now, we have to agree that we may be 30, 40 years behind the curve. The only thing that can get us ahead of the curve is science, technology, right? Now, how do we adopt the world-class best technology today and then bring the rest of the population along with it? And that is what we're doing. We're investing now in the best technology, digitization, AI, robotics. All of these things are going to be an important part of the economic, institutional, and governance transformation of our country. So what we have to do now, as part of that policy, is invest heavily in STEM in the school system, invest heavily in STEM in communities, and building out our infrastructure to promote STEM subjects and STEM output. That is why one of the most expensive investments we are making is a National Skills Training Center in Port Morant that will have all the simulators and the most advanced type of training. The Tourism and Hospitality Institute also will be located there, and that will have the most advanced training. So STEM is an important part of the policy. So you will see us investing at the community level, investing in schools, and investing in the infrastructure today that is the best, world-class, and then bring the population up to meet that. Now, culture and art are important parts of our society. We can't build a tourism sector without culture and art. We cannot build the history of our country, continue to tell the history of our country without culture and art. I think we have not been able to, I would say, to harness the full potential of our culture and art in bringing our people together, bringing our country together, in promoting our country. So how do we ensure in the school system and in the Ministry of Culture itself, we have a focus, and tourism must play a part in this, in the utilization of culture and art, not only as a societal asset, not only as a people asset, but as an economic tool, an economic asset. When we understand the value creation of culture and art, it becomes a more potent tool in advancing society and investing in it. So one of the things that I think we have to invest in is a state-of-the-art museum, art gallery, and we want to commence investment in this in the new year. You know, we are building from a sport perspective. We are investing in all the sports facilities around the country. We are seeing the results of this investment now. We are winning medals once again at Pan Am Games. We are winning medals all over the place. I believe that we are in a good position to win some medals even at the Olympics. And our football team, we are performing well. We're investing in the young people. We are sending persons. One of the things we're doing, we want to send persons to train in the Jamaican special center to build our athletes' potential. We have universities are doing spotting here now. We have Jeremy has been spotted, I think, by one of the universities. So our athletes are emerging now into the market. And that is because of the investments we are making. We are now investing in every single region to give all our children across, and the hinterland has tremendous potential, to give all our children across the country an opportunity to be part of this revolution in sports. Also, sports as a tourism product and sports as a major component of drawing people into Guyana is an important tool. Not only in cricket, we have to look at cricket, football, athletics. How do we position Guyana to be a major entertainment, sports, and cultural hub of this region that can attract people, bring people to full-up hotels, bring concerts, bring touring galleries, all of these things. So it is positioning these, and you know what? Unfortunately, technical people sometimes view sports, art, culture, even STEM to some extent, a softer issue. STEM in some society is viewed as an afterthought. But these are integral issues now that must form an important part of the policy matrix moving forward. And that is what you will see as we move forward.
So I can move to Rowena now. Rowena Elliot is head of the Women's Chamber of Commerce. Rowena, your question?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. President. So I think I'll probably go back on the business end and the point of the local content and how do we, I brought it up at a consultation just before the bill and everything. And I mean, I understand at that point it would not have been a focus, but now that there's space for us to revise the bill and everything. So how do we integrate a measure there for women-owned businesses or women-led businesses, specifically within those measures that we have where persons must, the 21 measures that went up to 40, is there a way for us to integrate specifically, you must have some sort of percentage of women that in your supply chain, you know, these businesses that exist?
So local content is about getting locals involved in business.
Right.
There's no differential between women and men in local. And women don't need a handout. They need the opportunity. The local content gave every Guyanese the opportunity. That is why you had the opportunity to bid. Look at the consortium that is doing the catering. Most are women, I think. The consortium for the Eco Lodge is all women. And all of these persons will benefit directly from the spin-off of the oil and gas sector. First, we had a battle to get the local content passed. And the local content is there for every Guyanese, whether you be male, female, every Guyanese has an opportunity to participate based on specific carve out for the local sector. So what I think women, men, everybody needs to do, especially from the women chambers, is to look at the areas that you have a low percentage carve out and to see how you can take that percentage up. Take, for example, the whole issue of insurance. How can we get a group of local businesses, whether it's all women, to approach a major insurance corporation or to work with the local insurance companies to take the percentage up for another 10 points? Because if you take the percentage up by another 10 points, then you're creating additional business opportunities locally here. So I think, and that is why we made it very clear, that the local content will undergo an annual review based on the performance of the local private sector, the interests of the local private sector, and the capacity that we're building up locally. So that is where I think the women chambers and all the other chambers need to focus. Look at the local content, look at the areas, and to see what is required to build up additional capacity so that we create more room for local businesses, more opportunities for local businesses. And I think that is the evaluation that needs to be done in relation to the local content. Not to ask for now a carve-out for women, because some other group might come and say, we need a carve-out for young people. We need a carve-out for indigenous people. We have to, first of all, work on building our collective capacity, building up our collective capability, building up our portfolio. And you're seeing it. It's occurring. More and more, we want all the services that the oil and gas sector need to migrate here so that we can produce it from here. So I think that is the focus, to do an in-depth evaluation on what is available, what we have now, and how do we build up this capacity. And going beyond the norm, And sometimes you just have to reach out. You may need capability and capacity from the outside. How do you design a business model in which you still have control and brings more opportunity for women? One of the things that we're going to focus heavily on is how do we build out the marine economy? Because shipping, the transport and logistics, the maintenance of shipping, the servicing of the ships, that is huge business. That is billions of dollars of business revenue that is available there that is not done here right now. But we don't have the capacity. Right now, we don't have enough barge in the country to move the material for construction, right? So that's an opportunity for women. Looking at where the country is going, investing in 2-3 barges with the enabling equipment so that you're part now of this trajectory. You see, for us, the role of this government is to create the opportunity. You have to go after it, right? And build your own capacity to be able to take part in it.
I totally get the point there. And the culture shift you mentioned, how there is definitely a culture shift, I believe, that needs to happen so that women take these opportunities up. They're usually in spaces where it's there, but they can't reach it because something is blocking. Lots of times it's how people view women and women in certain roles. So I think definitely private sector, but will the government assist in that kind of shift? Not just creating the opportunities, because as you mentioned, we're seeing it. The opportunities are there, but then there are barriers to women reaching them or getting them.
I don't think there are barriers. I think there are challenges.
Challenges, you're right.
Now, this group showed that there is no barrier in reaching anywhere that went out for the oil block. Right? And they can tell you, how many persons tell you guys that you're wasting time? Everybody. You know what I mean? It is how do you overcome the challenges? What are the challenges? What are the challenges? If you're saying to me, I want to do this from the local content, what are the challenges? Padma point to one of the challenges, access to finance. So what did the government do? We said to the bank that you must accept the contracts as guarantee for payment. So if you have a contract with a bona fide company, then you don't need to put up your house or you don't need to find a property to put up. The contract can be held as collateral. Those are some of the things that the government has been advancing to create these opportunities and to enable women and other local participants to benefit. So I think not only the opportunities are created, the system is there. We have to make sure that we allow the system to work for us and we work in the system. I will put it that way.
So as we're talking about all of those opportunities, I wanted to ask you about where you're finding the workers from, because there's a labor shortage. Guyana certainly can develop with 750,000 people. Are you looking at a specific model for the importation of foreign labor?
Well, that is the point. The point is, on one hand, you have persons saying, I'm looking for a job. No, they're saying I am unemployed, but they're not looking for a job. So technically, they're not unemployed. We have made this point. You see the ladies laugh? Anybody who says they're unemployed knows something wrong with them. Now, you may not get a job in your field, but how many of us, well, not us, how many persons go to North America as a doctor and drive a taxi? Because you have to take the job that is available and work your way up. I made an announcement weeks ago. Any engineering technician looking for a job, and you can't find a job, something is wrong, you give us your CV, we'll get a job for you the next day. I've not received 3 CVs up to now. So there is a problem. We're short now maybe between the public and private sector more than 1,500 nurses. Whilst we are expanding the training of nurses and building more nursing schools, this is an immediate problem. So in certain sectors, definitely, we'll have to import labor in the short and medium term. As I said, there will be a moving population. The growth is going to be so intense. When we start to move towards manufacturing and industrial development, that is another area of growth. All these hotels that will come on stream by 2025, you're talking maybe about 9, 10 new hotels. You're talking about maybe 3,500 new persons in the services sector, and not persons who will rotate. Because what we have now is a lot of rotation within the service sector. You will see somebody working at X hotel today. Tomorrow you go to Y hotel, they're there. The next day you go to A hotel, they're there. So this is going to be a problem that we have to confront. We have addressed it. We have raised the salary for nurses. I think that, but in the short and medium term, there will be importation of a lot. It's already happening. Many of the companies, many of you here know that the companies you are with or you're owners of have imported labor.
Right, so I was asking if there was something specific that you're looking at, like perhaps another country
There is something
model.
specific we can do. It's called the deployment of labor. If you go to restaurants in the developed world, most of the service staff are university students, aren't they?
Yeah.
Our university students don't see this as applicable to them. So how do we change that culture? Because it's adding to disposable income, of getting all the available labor within the country deployed. Whether you're at university, you're studying, you can do a shift system, you can work, you can do patient care, right? So how do we do that? The first thing we have to do is to deploy at scale all the available labor within the country. That also answers Padma's question. Because when you deploy all your available labor at scale, it is adding disposable income to the pockets of families. That is why we are now working on building the call centers in different regions and then training people who were never in the workplace to work in those call centers. So for example, in Region 2, you will have more than 400 people by 2025 who are working in call centers. That is new disposable income that is coming to the society. So these are the things that, but that would have never occurred if we did not give the incentives to take fiber to Essequibo and to bring down the cost of data by removing the VAT on data and making it more accessible to the common man.
Okay. Thanks. So
it's building that competitive environment.
Yeah, I want to move to Cristy Campbell now. She's president of the Table Tennis Association and vice president of the Olympic Association. You talked about Olympics earlier. Cristy, your question.
Thank you, Neil. Mr. President, first of all, I wish to commend you for the unprecedented injection of funds into the sports sector within the last 3 years. And indeed, it's as a result of these investments that we're seeing the construction of multiple multi-purpose facilities and stadiums, particularly in Region 10. We have the Wiz Rock Stadium is on the construction. We have a complete overhaul of the Mackenzie Sports Facility, which has been neglected for quite some time. So, and we also have in Berbice and in Region 2. So it's quite pleasing to us in the sport fraternity to see those developments in addition to the several community grounds that are being developed across the length and breadth of Guyana. So my question to you is, what has prompted your decision to make such huge investments in the sports sector? That is my first question, Mr. President.
Well, first of all, I think that your observations are correct. And I see sports as the most transformative, the lowest hanging fruit in the story of transformation. Because once you can actively involve persons in sports, automatically you're dealing with a number of societal issues. I'm not even going to get to developing the potential and capability to get to gold medal in anywhere. First of all, addressing societal issues, creating safe spaces, creating spaces through which people can exert their energy, competitive environment that is in a facility that promotes discipline. All of these things help society to become more disciplined. It helps in crime fighting. It helps in family building. It helps in community building. It helps in networking. It helps in coaching. It helps in value sharing. So it is these, what people call the softer aspects of development that I think are hardcore aspects of development that has prompted us to invest, and you'll see even more investment coming in sports, because it has that potential of transitioning negative energy into positive energy. It has that potential of building community spirit, of building societal spirit, of bringing people together. And that, I think, is something you cannot ascribe a value to. There is no monetary value that you can ascribe to that. It also gives us an opportunity and give our young people an opportunity to live their greatest potential, knowing that the system is going to support them. The system is going to invest in them. And the system is going to create the facilities that would enable them to be the best they can be. And I think that has been primarily the driving force behind the investment. And of course, you guys have been very strong advocates for investment in sports, but more importantly, strong advocates as to what sports can do in the transformation of our society and country. And that, I think, has landed itself a very integral place on the policy-making matrix.
Mr. President, well, of course, I'm happy to hear you mention that in 2024 we're going to have even more investment in sport, because that was the line of my second question. Outside from the huge financial investments in 2024's budget, is there anything that you are willing to disclose at this point that the sport fraternity could expect in 2024, whether it's policy-wise or any additional infrastructural development?
Well, there are two things that I want to address. One is more investment in the school system. So, for example, all our coaches, our national players in football, table tennis, volleyball that we have out there, we want to bring them into a training program and make them mentors, coaches for the school system so that they can be employed and they can work in the school system to help our young people to be more attracted to sports and having capable persons training them. The second thing is that I believe we would want to address the issues of making sporting equipment more accessible to people, whether it's from a tax perspective or incentive perspective. So you can see us moving towards making it more affordable, accessible, and more even. And that will be a big push, I think, in 2024. You may very well see adjustments in taxes and so on in relation to that.
Thanks, Cristy. We want to move to Abigail Ally. Abigail is a director with the Tourism and Hospitality Association of Guyana, and she's also co-owner of Bimichi. It's an eco-resort in St. Cuthbert's.
Very good.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us here. And my question for you is about the environment. I know that, with Guyana being one of the leading countries for economy and so on, with that we have a growing population as well. What plan do you have in place to implement effective waste disposal systems to reduce pollution and encourage recycling?
Beautiful question. Now, first of all, let me address two issues. One, on the issue of the environment, we don't want to be known as an energy, one of the major energy players alone. We want to lead in a number of areas globally: energy, climate, and food. So a lot of priority is placed on these 3 areas. Now, waste disposal is a very important subject matter that we must address in the 2024 budget and going forward. But waste disposal is a complex issue. It is not only about the building of facilities. We have to launch a very elaborate education campaign, first of all, on the way we treat waste ourselves, individually, as a family, and collectively. The way we treat the environment. And this is something that we are going to address in a very frontal way. So not only are we going to encourage investment, right now we have a team that is examining investor proposal to convert all the waste in Mandela for assessing all the waste we have. They said we need more waste to make the business viable, converting it into energy and converting it into different forms of petroleum products and other products. So right now, that is an active proposal that we have from one of the leading companies globally. And hopefully, they will make the investment decision. It adds no additional cost to us. There is no tipping fee or anything like that. So definitely we'll move towards recycling. We move towards heavier education. I think we need heavier fines also. And we need also to move to a new solid waste system in the Georgetown especially and other major municipalities. So you will have sewer systems, more modern sewer systems, more community-based oriented sewer systems being invested in all across the country. Now, I know that in your facility, you must be happy with the type of infrastructure we're doing now to make it more accessible to go to St. Cuthbert, and that is what we're investing in also all across the hinterland, making it more accessible and less costly to get to these eco facilities. And these facilities will do exceedingly well. They're already doing well. And your facilities, eco facilities, are the ones that we want to support more. Now, you talk about women. How do you women come together and build the first 5-star eco resort in the world here in Guyana? You have sandals throughout the Caribbean. Now, how do you develop that business model and go and get a big brand to come with you? We have all that is required to make it work here. So I want to congratulate you also on the work you're doing, and all of you. But to say to you that this is going to be an important part of the development and policy matrix. There are 4 issues in 2024 that I think we ought to address together. One is suicide. We have to take a bold bite at this and try at least to say we're going to cut suicide rate by half in 2024. What is required collectively to do this? How do we address the issue of mental health across the country, in the school system, starting from the school system, making mental health issues an issue of culture, where continuous education, continuous coaching, continuous assessment. So those are things that will, two things that we have to put on the priority agenda: suicide, mental health. The third issue is the accidents on the road. Now, we have to stop this by bold measures. I intend to have, for example, in the new year, a national consultation with all stakeholders to promote some very tough measures. One of the things that we're thinking about is the speed stopper in the vehicles themselves. So some of the public transportation must not exceed a certain speed. And that thing, I think they call it a governor. You put it into the engine, and it does not allow you to exceed a certain speed, all public transportation. Then for trucks, you put another system in for trucks. This is going to be a bold decision. We're going to have this conversation on that because I see it as a very important issue. We can't have mothers, parents, children losing loved ones like this. It does not make sense when we need all our human potential at the development of our country. The government, I think, would have to buy these things and distribute it nationally and make it mandatory for it to start with public transportation and trucks and so on, and then put a very hefty fine on persons who try to remove it or persons who do not use it. So that is the fourth area. And then this issue of democracy. Now, democracy has responsibility and accountability too. And if you see, many of you call me, many, especially women call me, about the type of abuse that takes place on social media, the type of insult that takes place on social media. And I believe that you can't sit anywhere and believe you have the God-given right to attack people continuously. Now, we respect democracy, and everybody has their rights. freedom of speech is for all of us. But there must be some accountability and responsibility to this. That is all I'm saying. That we need to build out an understanding that you just can't use a space that is available to you through freedom of speech to destroy or assassinate people's character. There is responsibility and accountability that comes with democracy. The government itself has responsibilities. We get measured against all kinds of international indicators. But individually, collectively as a country, we need to have a conversation also on this as to what are the responsibilities and accountabilities that come with democracy and what it entails. I think these are important conversations that we must have in 2024 also.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. And thank you guys very much. I think this is a good opportunity for Guyana to see also the capability and capacity we have among our women leaders in our society. So thank you guys very much for being here. I want to take this opportunity to wish you, all of you here, and by extension all of Guyana, a very prosperous 2024, one in which your ideas and your aspirations will be fulfilled, and one in which good health and prosperity and success will find its way in your homes and your lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you.